The Africa we want, which I think is really exciting. So, Connie, please, you're welcome.
Is the mic on? I don't know. It's on now. Is it on? So I quit engineering many years ago. I can't even switch on my own mic. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's on. No? There we go. So if I'm over here, I can still speak? Okay. I'd like to stay here for now. Good afternoon. I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to speak with you, despite some, my Nigerian friends call them village people. When you go somewhere and things are not working out, they say your village people are following you. So despite the efforts of village people, I have managed to to address you today. I will launch straight in. I was meant to address you on the Africa we want, because we have gathered here as the brightest young minds of Africa, and we want to reflect on how we can work together to see that our future is indeed bright. And when you hear the phrase, the Africa we want, you probably are, this comes to mind, the Agenda 2063, which is meant to be a blueprint for us to transform Africa into the global powerhouse of the future. What does that mean to us, the global powerhouse of the future? Some of us, when we think about a shining future for Africa, maybe think there are no more hawkers, the streets are clean, traffic is orderly, no corruption, no talk of third terms, this bright future. Being the powerhouse, the global powerhouse of the future might also mean that we feed the world, that we are the scientific and cultural center of the universe. So there are all sorts of ideas in your mind. There's no more malaria. So depending on what your discipline is, you probably have, someone had a dream for energy for all. So we have an idea of this Africa that we want in 2063. Unfortunately, many of us in 2063 is 40 years away, 45. I will be nearly 90, I think. Definitely I'll be in my 80s. So I think many of us will be not far from there. So I would suggest that we focus on how we can transform the Africa we have into this Africa that we want. And one filmmaker has said, to move forward, you must reclaim the past. In the past, you find the future and understand the present. And this idea is really very well articulated for me in the Ghanaian concept, or the Akan, I think it's the Akan people of Ghana, that have this concept of Sankofa. I will not attempt to pronounce those words, but it really means that it is not taboo to go back and fetch what you forgot. And the Sankofa bird is a mythical bird that goes forward while looking back, and it holds an egg in its mouth, which signifies the future. So it encompasses what we are talking about, going forward, not forgetting what has passed, understanding the present. And I'd like us to keep this in mind as we go forward. And what it really tells us, what Sankofa tells us, is that whatever we've lost, whatever we've forgotten, whatever we've foregone, whatever we've been stripped of, someone said that we can no longer get back the natural resources functioning, I think, or maybe the natural resources themselves, but we can restore the biodiversity functioning. So whatever we've been stripped of can be reclaimed, can be revived, can be preserved, and can be perpetuated. Now, when I quit engineering, I entered the educational sciences proper, and I always find it useful to think about things in educational terms. So I will think about the past in terms of the way we are educated. Many of us know that we are told that Africa was discovered river by river, mountain by mountain, not many years ago. correct? And for me, I mean, this was my history. This is what I learned in history. And I would say it's really not a correct picture. And maybe that's why my Nigerian brothers, I am told, and sisters, it's not only the fault of the men, abandoned history for 15 years. Is it true that you did not have history in your schools for 15 years? This is what I'm told. But probably if you're going to be teaching about being discovered, I would say get rid of it. But I was very, very happy not long ago to find out about the Great Zimbabwe. Only 2 years ago, I did not know that this place existed on Earth. Only 2 years ago, I found out about it on a BBC documentary. And last August, I visited it. This is something that was built in the 11th century. And touching it physically, for me, was such an inspiring moment. This is the Africa we had that we do not know we had. And I negated the words of a historian called Hugh Roper, who said, perhaps in the future there will be some African history to teach. At present, there is none or very little. There's only the history of Europeans in Africa. The rest is darkness, and darkness is not a subject for history. He said this in the 1960s. And as far as he was concerned, 1960s, going back, only darkness in Africa, except the history of Europeans in Africa. This is obviously patently untrue, and we know that. This is an Ethiopian philosopher that I found out was positing on the human condition 100 years before Kant or Locke or Hume were talking about what it meant to be human in the European Enlightenment. I did not know of his existence. I found out that the oldest university on Earth is located here in Africa, also maybe a year or two ago. And that is this university in Fez, which was founded in 859. And in the same location is also the oldest library in the world. And we Africans deprecatingly say about ourselves that if you want to hide something from an African, put it in a book. This is really unfortunate. I know that there are people from these two universities in the room, but in fact, Oxford University was founded 2.5 centuries later. And Cambridge, an additional century later. But I don't know if we are conscious of it in this moment. The date of this is yesterday. The Vice Chancellor of the University of Oxford was giving a speech on 900 years of education in Oxford. It's slightly more than that. And I needed to take my calculator out to find out, obviously, Al-Karain, I can't really pronounce it, is older. But who is telling this story? None of us. And if we are none of us telling it, you can be sure no one else is. Fortunately, you can, well, just a little additional fact about this university is that it was actually founded by 2 young women. And for me, why this is so inspiring as a woman is because we are always being told, fight for your rights, get your rights back. I only have to reach back in my own history and reclaim my rights, because women were present and active in education. But I was just going to say that fortunately you can always look this stuff up on the internet. And about a few months ago, I put this search term into Google, and this came up. So in some small text, it says the oldest one is in Fez, Morocco, but please take care to note that the oldest is University of Bologna in Italy, in Europe. So unfortunately, Oxford has to take the 3rd place of the oldest English in the English-speaking world, because, you know, the other 2 spots are taken. Oldest in the world and oldest in Europe are already taken. But what this tells me is if you look, without looking further into things, you may stumble upon stories that are told that are not correct, simply because we don't take the time to look into our own past. Coming to my own country, Uganda, a Catholic priest called Robert Felkin observed a cesarean delivery in 1879. This was 30 years after the first use of anesthesia in any part of the world was used in a hospital. 30 years later, rather 30 years earlier, anesthesia was used for the first time in a hospital worldwide. And Dr. Felkin observed this cesarean delivery in Uganda, and he recorded it. He said the patient was intoxicated with banana wine. The surgeon, there are other words in between that I skipped. The surgeon completed the uterine incision. The child was removed, the cord cut. Everything was then secured with 7 sharp spikes. A root paste was applied. A bandage of bark cloth was wrapped around it. And 11 days after the operation, the wound was entirely healed. What he observed is that this was so masterfully done, it was clearly being done for many years previously. It was not a new procedure. It was only observed then. And this is the problem with people saying things were discovered at such and such a moment. This is when they were observed by external people. We don't know when they started. And what it tells me is that we Africans were always thinking about things, solving our own problems, progressing in scientific ways to solve problems. We observed, we tested, and we developed. And when formal education systems came, unfortunately, this is what was said by the policy makers of the day, that the traditional educational structures were immoral and dangerous and to be avoided at all costs. If the African child cannot learn habits of cleanliness and order and notions of morals and religion in his own home, he should learn them at school. And this is the moment when we began to lose everything that we had learned for centuries and centuries. Fortunately, a lot of this information is not completely lost to us because, in fact, in Africa, half the children on the continent will never set foot in a classroom. That is not to say that they will grow up uneducated. They are in this informal parallel system that still carries the knowledge of our ancestors, the knowledge of how they adapted to their environment, the knowledge how they continue to adapt to this environment. Someone earlier asked how many PhDs were involved in the development of M-Pesa. We are still developing these solutions outside academia. You would find that many of these people probably did not go very far in school. And so, unfortunately, many educated Africans are unaware that we are in cultural bondage. We are not very strongly knowledgeable about our own past and our own history and our own culture. And because our own education is so outward-looking, it has bred among us, even the uneducated, a kind of African self-contempt. We despise anything that is African. We look down on it. We speak poorly of it. We don't trust it. We reject it. And these are the roots of our education system, in fact. So I want to move on to the Africa that we do have, now that we've looked a bit at the Africa we had. And the systems of education, you take a 6-year-old running around in the maize field, you bring them to class, you show them this symbol here is A, and A is for apple. This does not even look like anything that anyone can eat. So I don't know what a child should make of this. They don't know what A is. They don't know what this thing is. And they continue with their learning about how Tiffany and Elliot are running through the meadows or riding ponies or roasting marshmallows in winter. And if the poor child asks, what are these things? What is Tiffany? Even the name Tiffany can be strange to a poor rural child. What is Tiffany? Is it edible? And unfortunately for such a child, they are told to shush and repeat. A is for what? You know how it goes. Good students repeat what the teacher says. Why isn't A for anthill? What person that lives in Africa does not recognize this picture? So if you're going to learn the alphabet and learn how to speak English, at least name things in your own environment. And these are things that we the educated, unfortunately, are so divorced from. We don't know that we are miseducating. We're just perpetuating this miseducation, our own miseducation for that matter. So that's why, because I learned all about the Canadian prairies, I could very easily identify a wheat plant. I've never seen one in real life, mind you. But I could not identify a fene tree, a jackfruit tree, that's in my own parents' backyard. So how can we say that we, the people in this room, including myself, are going to transform the Africa we have into the Africa we want? We here in the room, including myself. I like to think that the things I'm talking about are not very removed from what you're familiar with. So I just want to show, well, because, this is just to say that other people now also feel that they can tell us about our problems. I love Megan. I've watched Suits, the whole season, all the seasons available, I've watched them. But, I mean, anyone can come and tell us about our problems. What are we saying? We should also, well, sometimes we also go over there and tell them about theirs. But I wanted to also come back to this. I really liked this. And I wanted to explain to you, I had never seen this until this morning, so thanks for sharing. Where was he? I wanted to explain to you that in Uganda, this Luzinda is a musician who in 2016, her nudes were leaked. Photos of her nude were leaked. That's why I think she was trending in Uganda. But ask yourself, we tell the story of internet penetration, almost 100%, but we don't tell the full story. What are people using the internet for? It's supposed to be connecting to this wealth of knowledge, but we don't tell the whole story because we do not know what the Africa we have. How can we then transform it into the Africa we want? I have a short clip to show you on the Africa we have. You have to play it. There's no sound. Just pause it, please. Shall I go? Okay.
I take a seat at Giradogo Presby School in the Pandai district of the Northern Region. My aim is to find out how students in JHS2 were coping with information communication technology lessons without computers. Today's lesson is how to create a folder.
To create a folder. Before you can able to create a folder,
Pardon the spelling error and concentrate on what the teacher has to say about how to create a folder.
Create a folder. Before you can able to create a folder, when you on your boot on your computer, we have some place you click. You click and you will see the place folder, and when you click, the folder will, the empty folder will appear, and then you open it and put all your documents inside.
I am confused about what the teacher is saying, so I intervened.
Do you know what a folder is?
Who knows what a folder is?
Folder is a symbol where you keep or keep your what? Documents inside for the future use.
What did your teacher say?
He said that a folder is where you keep your documents for future use.
Folder is a kind of storage device which where the documents are kept.
A folder is a form of distance. It's a form of picture when you keep your distance, your things inside. Example like information or documents. There.
Kind of a computer where file or data input.
What is happening here is sad, perhaps tragic. This teacher has been employed under the National Youth Employment Program. He is expected to impart knowledge to the children. Unfortunately, the children don't understand the lessons, but the teacher insists they are doing very well.
Yes, they understand. Yeah, the reason why I'm sure that they understand is that when I contest them class tests or class exercise, they'll perform.
You know, there are just some things that are funny but very sad. And as a person who's in education, the people in this room, we have to understand that we can do all the pieces of research that we like. If we are living in an Africa like this where we don't know what's going on, in fact. We are used to where our own children go and we complain that they carry heavy bags in the morning and wake up too early. This is a very small part of our reality. And this is only in education. And just to not to paint a bad picture of Ghana, this is not only happening in Ghana, you all know that. Let us look at a scientist in Ghana who's doing some very good transdisciplinary research. She's called Amma de Graft Akins, and I saw a presentation of hers a few months ago while I was in Ghana, and it's on dialogues on mental health in Ghana. And what she wanted she went across the disciplines into the arts to investigate what the reality of mental health is. And some of the images that you're going to see may be a little bit disturbing, but people without us are solving their own problems, however they are solving them. So one here is a mentally disturbed person who's being held in a prayer camp and being prayed over. This is someone in a neighborhood who has to carry around something very heavy so they don't wander away too far and maybe get run over. And it's not as if these people do not love their relatives, it's just the solution that they find. And if we think about our own solutions of mental health without understanding what's really going on, we are doing no work, in my opinion. And this one here is a bit of graffiti. You might call it graffiti, but again, it's a person with mental health problems who keeps writing down the date 3rd September 2001, which is clearly a moment that was crucial to, pivotal for them. And this mental health worker, by partnering with photographers, with artists, could then come up with a contextually relevant, co-created solution to dealing with the issue of mental health that also involved the carers, the medical health workers, and other members of the community. But this was only while they had to understand the Africa that we have more fully. So I just want to end with saying that transforming the Africa that we have into the Africa we want requires us to enter a deep dialogue. We have to be much more humble. We have to understand that the knowledge we have is not all the knowledge that there is, or even the most important knowledge. We have to stop using phrases like, we shall push our research to the policymakers. Or we should go down to the ground, go down there, to the grassroots. we have to learn how to communicate. And communication includes listening. We don't always listen. We want to go and speak, speak, speak. And even when you listen, you have to be open to other kinds of understandings, and other kinds of knowledge, other kinds of experiences. Because this is how we build a full picture of the Africa that we want, how we can transform it in any case. So as we go for our walk this afternoon, I would like us to really think on all the research that we do, and remember that there is nothing that happens in reality that happens component by component. You don't have first malaria happening over there, and then after that mosquitoes over there, and then after that children in the hospital, or breastfeeding not happening. I mean, it happens all together. So you can't study it one by one. That's why we need to speak to one another across disciplines. But we also have to speak across the past and the present. We really have to take a deep interest in our past. We have to stop the language. I mean, of course, there are many ways in which things have already been solved, especially in the physical sciences. It's easy to transfer things, but not in the social sciences. You cannot bring theories on how people live and transport them here. As much as they are best practices, they simply will not work. And I would like to say, even for some of the physical sciences, this is another continent. It has a different history. It has a different composition. So we have to think about how we speak across disciplines, speak across the past and the present, speak across society and science. Many of us today in this conference have been speaking to one another as fellow scientists. But if you're honest, you did not understand half of what your fellow scientists were saying. So we have to learn how to communicate, even among ourselves. To do good transdisciplinary or interdisciplinary research, we have to learn how to communicate. Because we speak and we write, we think we are good communicators, but we can improve. Like, I'm not saying we're bad, but we can improve. So as we go on our walk today, let us think about how we can engage more deeply with our past, with our present, so that we can transform Africa into the Africa we want. And let's keep the idea of Sankofa in front of our minds. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Connie, for that really insightful talk that you've given us. It sort of gives you mixed feelings. I sort of laughed when I can sort of teach you how to create a folder. Yeah. But then the mentor thing also got to me, and I got information about, like, the first university was actually on the African soil. I think these are really inspiring, connected themes. And I wanted to check with you whether there are any burning questions that you might want to ask Connie right now. And I'll give a chance for 3 of them. And after that, we'll have Judy come over. Right. I'll start right there in the corner, and then I'll have you end. Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Connie, for that very enlightening presentation. Yeah, we can all see, particularly because the education sector, the education side of things is what my group is working on under the AS groups, working groups. And so when I see something like that, which is, a teacher who is coming from Ghana and is struggling to explain concepts to students who also don't seem to understand what the teacher is talking about. My question is, going forward, and because we have done research on what is happening on the continent, what is your advice to my working group and AS that we can now start conversing about? Thank you. I should have said my name, sorry. My name is Catherine Ngila, but the full names are Professor Jane Catherine Ngila.
Okay, I'm Amna. First, I'm really happy about listening to this presentation. I'm here.
Yes.
Okay. And to be honest, I get the feeling that I didn't know, I cry so I mean, because it's really very sad, let's say, what is the situation we have. And also one of the things that I feel it really has a very bad impact we have right now is that the technology we have, we don't use it in a right way. Which, for example, you get the kids who are playing with iPhone or with wherever technology. So the idea is like, we also need to stand and try to explain first the technology before we have it available in the market, let's say. One thing. And the second thing is like the one he was explaining about the folder, he could do that, but to show it in a simple example that is available, like saying the computer, let's assume that the room we are sitting is a computer you have, which you have, this is a back is like a folder. So it's like, the idea is like you can always give an example, but it has to be a reality, which is connecting together. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very inspiring presentation. I'm Leopold Tiencho from the MRC unit, the Gambia. So as a biologist, I will take it to the biology aspect. I mean, the Africa we have, we just listened to a presentation by Chimuza, who were looking at the genetic diversity and see how Caucasian is really strikingly different from African. And I think initiative like H3 Africa is really bringing out knowledge of the diversity that we have to tap into in order to even understand the disease diversity within the continent and even how we approach them in terms of treatment. But one thing that I want to really touch on, because it showed really some very historical truths that were new to me. I mean, is there any study you might be aware of in the anthropology field that are being carried on to really inform Africa of what, you know, those knowledge that often we get a glimpse of when we go in the village, but now with the grandparents dead with those knowledge, we don't longer have. But I mean, I'm sure that people working in this field, how are they feeding the population with this knowledge? Thank you.
So really excellent questions. I'll just address them quickly. Not that I'm an expert of any sort. I'm just an interested person. I'll start with the last one. You ask if there are any anthropological documents or sources where you can know more. I found out about many of these things from a BBC documentary. I forget what it's called. I'll share it with you later. But they've looked at Africa over many centuries. And there's plenty of information that's already available, actually. Some that was recorded by ourselves, some by people who are visiting us. And, but also, we look down on studies like history, unfortunately, so we don't have a lot of Africans interested in doing history, so we could be doing more. And that's why we really have to be careful when we are always saying, I'm a big fan of STEM. STEM is really important. But we must also think about the arts and humanities and social sciences. You cannot understand anything that's going on in society without studying these fields. And Catherine was asking, what advice do I have on what we can do when we have situations like this? And it's related to your question, Amna. Unfortunately, we have to really to be bold enough to do some things different. In my opinion, having this class in that location without a computer is a complete waste of time. We need ICT skills, sure. And maybe from what you are saying about the iPhone, a lot of these people have phones. Maybe there's something that resembles a folder on a phone. So then do not follow what the Ministry of Education says you should follow, even though it does not fit. And sometimes they lack, the people who implement these policies lack our engagement. We don't engage them. And we wait for them to come and find us, whereas we really should go, observe this and say, how did this come about? Who do I need to contact? Not long after I finished my PhD, I thought, let me go to the Ministry of Education and see what research they're doing and see if I can ask the questions that are relevant to them. Because after I finished my PhD, I brought my PhD thesis and I said, okay, so now I've done this work, blah, blah, blah. Okay, did you ask this question, No. Okay, did you find out about this and this? No. What did you do? I did this and this and this. Interesting. Okay, just give it to us, we shall read it, we don't create these questions together. So if you know what's going on, then you can create more relevant questions. And if we are only 198 scientists per million in Africa, and we are wasting time, I'm sorry to say, I don't want to say we are wasting time with the research we are doing, but we could be doing a lot more with the time we are spending on our research if we were asking really the most important questions possible. Do understand me, I'm not saying we're asking bad questions, but let's just rethink the questions that we're asking. And whose question is this? My PhD was entirely my own question. Unfortunately, not many other people were interested in it. And how did I come out to the question? I read literature, I did this and the other. I just sat in the university and decided what topic I was going to work on. It would have saved me 4 years of working on a question that was not all that important to many other people if I'd just gone to the Ministry of Education before I started my PhD. Unfortunately, when I went back to present it to them, mind you, they told me, we don't have a research unit in the whole of Ministry of Education. So we have a lot that we can contribute, but we don't take that step. I think I've answered everything.
We have just 1 more minute in case there's one last burning question right there. Yes, Kings.
Thank you for the opportunity. So I understand clearly that for scientists, if we actually ignore the capacity for explaining our research to other people, we are really shooting ourselves in the foot. I managed a radio station in my other life, and my first grant was from the Ghana AIDS Commission because I was presenting a show on HIV/AIDS, speaking to people who have HIV and things like that. So we are very, very aware of this particular situation, that we are now developing the skills for that. Of course, in Ghana, we had 2 big national issues on science and how it trickles down to the people. So this is very, very important that no one should ignore. All of us should get involved in it. I just wanted also to throw another side of that story of the folder. It was really a humbling experience when we all saw this on television. But I mean, in the right context, it is that the guys were, for example, employed under a political system, not under the Ghana Education Service, for example. And the good thing that happened was that after that was seen on television, we have philanthropists donating computers to that region. And we had the circuit supervisors going there to ensure that people who actually are qualified are involved in teaching that. So, I mean, this is something that happened. And of course, in many parts of Africa, a remote place is completely hidden from the mainstream that we can ever be aware of. And so, I mean, it was a radio program that actually went there to do this, and we are very much appreciative of that. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's just a comment.
Yeah. All right, so let's put. Yes, Tom.
I thank you, Connie, for an inspiring presentation. So there was a question around, are there materials out there? So I agree with you, there are materials out there. I just want to point people to the fact that 2 years ago we did at the request of a collaborator at Harvard. So we did a series called Africa's Great Civilizations. So it's a 6-part TV series, and you can Google it and see what's up. When I say we, I mean the African Academy of Sciences was on the advisory board.
Yes,
that
yes,
TV
yes,
series.
yes.
And I think it's a great series. It's beautifully narrated by Henry Skip Gates, who is well known in U.S. circles as a narrator. So there's a lot out there that you can learn about that. I think tomorrow also the presentation around Africa's human origins would add a lot, would complement a lot of what you have also said.
Yep. No, that's the one that where I saw the Great Zimbabwe, in fact. Africa's great civilizations, for that matter. Yeah.
So I'm looking out for Grace. I can't see her, and there's still very many hands being raised.
Someone is even standing. Someone is even standing up, so you don't miss her.
Right. Okay.
And he was
and
first.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you, and then give Makina.
So that was inspired too, but I'm still being a little bit satisfied in terms of, we know the problem that Africa is facing now in terms of education, in terms of lifestyle and everything, so all the challenge. But what actually, per your experience or with all the audience here, what was actually the factors that contribute to this current situation that we have? For me, I think if we understand those factors properly, then we will know what can be done actually, or what strategy can be put in place so that we can start to address those issues. So if every single scientist, African scientist, can understand, okay, look, those are the factors that actually contribute to our decline in terms of education, in terms of our position globally. So now those are the strategies we have to work on it, and we will know precisely how to find help so that we can move on.
So we get the last one.
I'll come to you. Dalia. Thank you very much. This is precisely what I was saying. We have to be bold and do things differently. Just understand that this other thing didn't work for me. Why do I think it's going to work for this next generation? But just to comment on what you were just saying now, my brother from over here, but what are the factors that have led to our current situation? This is precisely the value of transdisciplinary research. The scientists here cannot tell the full story of why we are where we are. And that's why we also have to do mixed methods research. Many of us identify as quantitative researchers, but qualitative research is important. You have to know why things happened. And someone was saying that our grandmothers or, street vendors or other people that are outside academia, they experience these things and they can tell you how they came about, what happened, then what happened, then what happened, then how come now. But we don't ask them. We ask one another. If even, else we just study the problem in our own discipline, full stop. Publish, get promoted, retire. I'm speaking a little bit harshly here, but for me it's very urgent that we take a bold step and we do things differently.
All right. So thank you very much, Connie. Let's put our hands together and thank Connie for. Okay, so I'm going to ask Grace to come and give us instructions on the next step. Thank you.
Hope you're doing well. You need a coffee shot. In a few minutes, you'll get one. But before that, I'll ask Judy to make an announcement. No, you.
How did we get there? I was told by my teacher in high school, these ones are good at maths, these ones are not, these ones will do science. I wanted to be a musician. I told my parents that, they said you will do science. And so I got here. But anyway, as you heard on day one from Tom, our programs, the African Academy of Sciences supports several fellowship programs for early career researchers. And I'd like to announce one call that was launched yesterday, the African Postdoctoral Training Initiative. This is a partnership between the Academy, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the National Institutes of Health in the USA. This is the second call, the second round of the call for APTI. It's open. It's in the fields of infectious disease, nutrition, reproductive health, maternal, neonatal, and child health. Okay, so please encourage those your colleagues and those who work in your research groups to apply for this. The fellows who spend 2 years at the NIH, one of the NIH labs in Bethesda, and then they'll work on a research project and continue working with their home institution. The idea is for them to return to their home institution with support from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, with salary support, to continue working in that field. Now, there was an interesting statistic that somebody, I think it was Tom, a few years ago, if you'd go to the NIH supports almost 200 or over 2,000 postdoctoral research scientists. And you look around, you say there are many from Asia, there are many from other countries, and who can guess how many there were from Africa? 100? 20? Any offer? 5? A trick question. 0 to 1. Yes. So this is a really good initiative, and please do encourage your colleagues to apply.
Thank you so much, Judy. We've really tried to save time today, so thank you very much for your cooperation. Before we break for the coffee break, which you're going to combine with wearing shoes to walk to Karura Forest, we're going to introduce you to what you're going to be doing as you are walking. We really want you to enjoy the space. If you notice, there were some monkeys that came to visit. You'll find more of them in the forest, but it's really a beautiful place to refresh yourself and to connect with nature. I'll allow Chris to say something about our workshop and what we intend to achieve, but this is really for you and not for the conference organizers. This is something that is for you. Chris.
Thanks, Connie. While I begin to speak, I'm going to ask Elieth to come to also just explain a little bit to us. So the idea is that you are each going to receive, are they busy handing out? So as we speak, the volunteers will walk along through the tables before we go to tea. They can start. The volunteers can start handing out so you'll each get a beautifully tiny folded a bit of paper with a number on. These are numbers 1 till 28. That's your group. So at tea time, find the other members of your group. So if you're number 12, find the other number 12s. And you will be, that will be the group that stays together for the walk through the forest. Why a walk through the forest? Elieth, please.
Thanks. Okay, why walking to the forest? We want to try to disrupt your minds, because you and us, of course, we have the behavior. Our main behavior is to think from our lab, to read our papers. And so together we think that for this event, we have to walk into the forest to discuss with our group for many things, but focusing on the conference, and maybe with the sound from the air, maybe lizards or some birds. I hope we won't have snakes and other things. We can change the way to think and be inspired very differently. So that is the concept, and this will be a test also for the futures event.
Fantastic. So you will allow yourself to brainstorm while being inspired by nature. Please take with you at least take with you these post-it notes, and the group, we encourage you to whatever ideas you come up. So while you're brainstorming, maybe you're just thinking of what are the topics or the questions that we need to investigate, to research more on about the Africa we want, or what are the skills. We had a session on mentorship. What are the skills that we need to focus on? So this could serve, for instance, as ideas and inspiration for a future event similar to this. So that's more or less. For the rest, this is more or less left up to you to come back. So make sure that tomorrow those notes that you wrote on the post-its, come and stick them on the two what do we call this? Boards on the side. Okay. Any questions?
Can we leave our stuff here because we are going for a walk?
Okay, there's a question about our stuff.
Let me provide some practical details, and Tom Yes, Tom, you'd like to say something. You may leave your bags in the room. We will ensure that we lock the room because we will come back to the ICRAF campus to catch our buses. So in terms of time, we hope we can get into the forest from exactly 4:30, so we have 15 minutes. Please don't worry about changing your clothes, just change your shoes. It's a simple walk, very, very simple. We're not going to make you climb mountains or climb trees as I normally do. Tom, do you want to say something? We should be out of the forest by 6 so that we catch the bus and are back to our hotels and are ready for the dinner reception starting at 7 p.m. tonight.
And
Tom,
the trail
please.
will be a single trail?
We will guide the trail. It's one trail. Please go in groups, but in a single file. Don't deviate from the trail that we are going to guide you.
You said what I wanted to say. So it's a very safe forest. This is where I do my running and walking. So it's where I connect with my spirituality. So I'm happy you are going there.